What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sons of Sever YouTube channel, where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. My name is Eric. Today my brother Chris and I are going to be doing a toe-to-toe comparison of the Barefoot Bruin versus the Jim Green African Trooper. It's a comparison that we're excited to make. We made the comparison between the Bruin and the African Ranger last year, when the Ranger was the only barefoot option that Jim Green had. Now they've expanded their line. They've come out with the African Trooper, which is a taller boot, so this is a much better comparison now, in our opinion. So Chris and I are going to go back and forth. There's timestamps in the description if you want to go jump around, but I'm going to send it over to him now for our first comparison.
First category I'm going to be talking about here is Barefoot Features. The most important one to me is going to be their toe box widths, but I'm going to mention the other ones as we go along. They're a bit of a wash. Starting with the stack heights, the African Trooper is at 14 millimeters and the Bruin is at 15 millimeters. When it comes to ground feel, I think that the Jim Green actually has just a little bit more, but that's because the boot is more flexible overall, so it contours more to the ground beneath you as you're walking around. You can see here, it bends and flexes pretty good. If we move over to the Bruin, whatever rubber they're using on their outsole is definitely a little bit more rigid, so we don't get quite as much flex there. But otherwise, as far as the stack heights being very similar to each other, the ground feel is pretty similar as well. It needs to be mentioned that the Barefoot African Trooper actually isn't 100% zero drop. It has very minimal drop, in our opinion, not very noticeable. It has a 2 millimeter sock liner in there. Some people in our comment sections have gone as far as to rip those out. I don't think you need to be that extreme. I don't think you'll notice it, Eric and I don't, but it is worth mentioning that it is not zero drop. And the last thing to mention here, which is the most important thing to me, is going to be those toe boxes. The Bruin is definitely wider. And the way that I categorize toe boxes is, can I feel my pinky toe rub the outside edge of the boot or not? On the Jim Green, I definitely can, unfortunately, feel that. On the Bruin, I cannot. Love the toe box of the Bruin overall. In our comment section of the African Trooper, Jim Green actually got in there and said they're experimenting with wider toe boxes for their barefoot styles, so that is exciting to know. I do wear shoes less if I get that rub, so I would love to see a Trooper with that wider toe box, but for now, in my opinion, this category goes to the Barefoot Bruin.
Okay, next up, let's talk about the construction methods used to make these boots, as well as their durability. This one might take a little bit more because we did want to talk about it in depth. But starting off with the African Trooper, you can see, just like all of Jim Green's boots, this has a 360-degree stitch down construction. So that stitch down connects the upper to that insole as well as the midsole, and then the outsole is glued to the midsole. Now, the thing that I like about their stitch down construction is that the cord that they use in here is burly. It's thick. It's 2.2 millimeters. And so these things are just built like tanks. This is going to be a super durable shoe for you, as well as repairable. And other than that, it's a pretty simple construction. You've got a veg tan insole. You've got a really nice nubuck leather upper. It also has what you can see is triple stitching, where the vamp comes onto the main body and along the heel there. And another cool thing that I like about Jim Green, the way that they construct these boots, is this is a genuine toe cap, and so I think it's around 5 millimeters of leather that you have on top of your toe right there. We've never had a problem with any of their eyelets or any of their stitching failing. We find these boots to be very durable and made very, very well. All right, so bringing up the Bruin, this one is constructed just a little bit differently in that it is a Blake stitch instead of stitch down. So that Blake stitch is something that you can see inside the boot. If you were to peel away that insole, it is a non-removable insole, but similar to the African Trooper, you do have that insole which is stitched down to the midsole, and then you've got the outsole which is glued to that midsole, which means that once this thing starts to delaminate, you can then go and take it to get repaired. So again, that's really cool with these two brands that they're doing that, because that's really different from anything else out there in the barefoot shoe market at this time. These really are some good hard use, but also foot shaped and minimal work boots for you. Now, some features that this one lacks from the African Trooper, this isn't a real toe cap. So when Anvil cut into this one, they saw that this isn't actually two pieces of leather, one on top of the other, so a little bit weaker right there. But they do something interesting with the eyelets that I think make them pretty durable, and that they have leather folded over on itself right here, so you do get double the amount of leather right there. And it does look like it's got actual triple stitching around these other parts of the boot. And so it hasn't been a problem for us. I know that there have been comments and things made that say, hey, these things started to fail on me in this place, but these have actually held up for us pretty well. So slightly different construction methods trying to accomplish the same goal, giving us some barefoot boots that are repairable and also that are going to be more durable. As far as who I think is going to last longer, I'm definitely going to give that to Jim Green because of the genuine toe cap that they have, because of that burly cord that they use in their stitch down construction. We haven't had any issues with any of this.
The next category that I'm going to compare is going to be their traction patterns. Both of these traction patterns work really well. One definitely works way better than the other. Looking over at the Bruin, we have those bear claw traction lugs. Very interesting. I'd guess that they're about 2 millimeters or so not super deep, but they actually work surprisingly well in just about all terrain. I would say that on wet surfaces it works just fine, in snow just fine, in the typical things that you're going to see, dry pavement, dry dirt, mud, gravel, those kinds of things. This traction pattern works really well. But the Anvil outsole designed by Weston at Rose Anvil for this boot is absolutely fantastic. And I'm not sure if it's the rubber that they used or the traction pattern itself, just these tiny triangles that have a decent amount of space in between the lugs. I'd say they're probably 3 millimeters deep or so a little bit deeper, but these things are sticky on ice. We expected this to do well in all of the normal situations that I talked about, like with the Bruin, whether it is gravel or dirt or mud or whatever, but we were shocked at how well these things stuck to ice and dug their way through snow. So I have to give the win here to the African Trooper and its outsole pattern. This thing is absolutely bomb-proof. I don't know what magic is in it, but we absolutely love this outsole from Rose Anvil. Before we move on to our next category of comparison, we want to mention that we have links down in the description for both of these companies. So if you're interested in going and shopping around on their websites for different offerings that they don't just make these boots, they make some other offerings as well that you might be interested in. Make sure to use those links down in the description, and then we have discount codes down there as well if you are interested in purchasing anything. Those purchases are super helpful to us because we can then take that money to upgrade our cameras, upgrade our lighting, upgrade our backgrounds, and purchase from companies that aren't willing to send products out to us, so you get more well-rounded reviews from us overall. So if you're interested in grabbing anything from these companies, make sure to use those links down in the description. We really appreciate it.
All right, next up, let's talk about the sizing with the two shoes. So as far as the Barefoot Bruin goes, we found that to run about a half size too small. So I've got a size 9 in both of these shoes, and my toe is much closer to the end of the Bruin. I could definitely use a 9.5 with them. Jim Green is a little bit better. I have a little bit more length between my toe and the end of the African Trooper, but I do feel like that one could be sized up about a half and still fit me pretty well. Like, it does fit, but I think if you're pushing the boundaries of your size, you might want to go up a half a size in the Trooper. At least that's been my experience. And then I would say definitely go up at least a half a size in the Barefoot Bruin. That one seems to run just a little bit short.
The final category that I'm going to compare here between these two boots is going to be comfort. I want to start off by talking about something that was uncomfortable in both of these that you should be aware of, and then I'm going to move into two things that play into the difference in comfort between these two boots for me. So the uncomfortable thing is the heel rubbing that you get when doing longer uphill hikes. Eric and I experienced that rubbing in both of these, a little less for me in the Bruin, but Eric felt it just about as much as he did in the Trooper, and Eric and I both felt the rubbing in the Trooper. It was pretty rough on our heels overall, so just note that about both of these boots. They both might rub your heel the wrong way. The two things I want to focus on when it comes to the comfort of these is the inside, what's actually inside of these boots, and then that toe box width that I've already mentioned in the Barefoot Features. That is a big priority for me when it comes to comfort. But the first thing I want to say is the insides of these boots. On this, you just kind of have a raw piece of leather as your insole, and then that sock liner as well. You can see that piece of leather in the layering here. On the Bruin, you actually have a mestizo leather insole that feels like it's maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. It's a little bit squishy, a little bit more comfortable in my opinion than what's going on here in the Trooper. Now, one thing I will say is we are affiliates with Rose Anvil, who makes a boot breaker insole. You can throw that guy in here to give yourself a little bit more squish and comfort. We have done that, and that does work. So that is an option, but the Bruin comes with that kind of feature built in with a very nice squishy mestizo leather insole. The other thing that I've already talked about at length to a degree is that toe box. So the wider toe box on the Bruin does allow my toes to splay out without touching the outsides of the boot. And when my pinky toe rubs the outside of a boot, I tend to wear it less because it's just not as comfortable for me. So when it comes to this specific category of comfort, while they're pretty similar, I have to give it to the Bruin for overall comfort features.
Okay, so when it comes to the price of these two shoes, the African Trooper is $230 USD, while the Barefoot Bruin comes in at $250. So I think that the African Trooper does provide more value. Now there's only a $20 difference between the two shoes, so it isn't much, but I think that the African Trooper is built more durable, and because of that and its lower price point, it does provide more value in that area.
Getting into my final opinion on which of these boots would I choose if I could only choose one. It kind of hurts me to say this because of how much I love Jim Green as a company and what they do, but I'd have to go with the Barefoot Bruin. And the reason why is the toe box. The toe box really is a deal breaker to me, as I've mentioned several times in this video. And if Jim Green would go forward with playing with a wider last for their Barefoot offerings, this thing would be an absolute home run winner for me, no contest. But right now, I wear the Barefoot Bruin more, and I really like it for a lot of the things that I do. I just think that the features of the Barefoot African Trooper are a little bit better. The construction is a little bit better. The longevity is probably going to be a little bit better, but you're just not going to wear something that's less comfortable to you than something that is more comfortable to you. And the Bruin overall is more comfortable and more wearable for me. It has been pretty dang rugged overall for all the different things that I have used it for, whether it's hiking or using it actually at my delivery job for lots and lots of miles of walking. If I had to knock it one way, it is that this specific, the right one, is starting to delaminate here a little bit, but they're resolable, so who cares? It's not having any catastrophic failures, and I still think to this day it looks really, really good. But the African Trooper is just one feature away from absolutely crushing it when it comes to this kind of boot in the barefoot space.
Okay, so when it comes to the winner of this toe-to-toe challenge, who is it for me that I would pick? And I'm gonna go with the African Trooper for this one. Overall, I think that I've had a better experience wearing it, but I do want to give you some things to consider with each of these boots. Now, when it comes to the Bruin, it has the better toe box for sure. It's definitely more foot shaped. When it comes to toe splay, this is easily the winner of that battle. So if your toe box is the main concern, then we definitely think that you should go with the Barefoot Bruin. On top of my foot, this tends to just feel like it's bunching up on the top of your foot. Now, it's something that I've gotten used to. I think as the leather's gotten softer, it hasn't bothered me quite as much, but it is something that I notice every time that I put the shoe on. So there's a few things about this that just aren't as comfortable as the African Trooper are. So when it comes to the Trooper and why I would pick this one, a few things to consider: that toe cap, the way that it's been constructed, like I talked before, with the 2.2 millimeter cord, and it's a lot easier to get on even though it's a taller boot. This tongue comes out super far and you can slip your foot right in there, so I really like it. I mentioned that the Bruin isn't as comfortable underfoot, and that's mainly a flexibility issue. I found that while I was working on my basement, crouching down, cutting wood, tons of stuff like that, my feet felt more fatigued when I was wearing the Bruin than when I was wearing the Trooper. So while I am gonna give the W to the African Trooper in this toe-to-toe challenge, I don't think that the Bruin is super far off, and I think that a lot of people might scoff at that, but having put both of them through their paces like we have, I really do enjoy wearing the Bruin. If it weren't for a few little missteps that I wish that they would fix, come out with a Bruin 2.0 that has a different tongue system, different eyelets so that it doesn't bunch on the top of your foot, and the shape of that thing would make it just amazing to wear. But overall, I think that the African Trooper is a better value. I think that it's gonna last longer. I do find it more comfortable underfoot. I do wish that that toe box was a little bit wider, so we'll all keep crossing our fingers that Jim Green is going to deliver on that. But despite all those things, the Trooper is going to take it for me in this toe-to-toe video.
Folks, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. All those things really help the channel out. If you're interested in any of the products that we talked about in this video, there will be links to them down in the description. If we have discount codes for any of those companies, they will be featured with the links. If you want to get more content from us, there are 3 different places you can get it. The first one is Patreon, where for $1 a month, you can get exclusive behind-the-scenes content we don't post anywhere else. If you want to be most up to date with what we are working on, make sure to follow us on Instagram, where we are constantly posting unboxing videos. Go follow us on Strava if you're interested in seeing mini reviews in real time of the products we're using and what we're using them for. Strava allows you to track and post about your different activities. We track and post about our runs, trail runs, hikes, paddleboarding, and weightlifting, and we do little mini reviews on the products we're using during those activities. Go follow us there, and we will follow you back. We appreciate your view, and as always, we will catch you in the mountains.